Okay, we're still actually waiting for our other scheduled speaker, Sheila Coleman. Hello, Sheila. Would you like to come to the front, please?
Yes.
Can I just introduce Sheila Coleman from Unite the Union. Sheila's the Community Membership Officer, and she's going to be talking to us about Unite the Union working within the community. Would you like to take a seat, Sheila? Thanks.
Thank you. It's good to be here with Ruth and Linda and Mark and others, because I think what it shows is how when you work together you can achieve a lot. And I'm the Northwest Region Coordinator for Unite the Union and of the community branches, and this was a new initiative of Unite's to encourage the unemployed, pensioners, students, and we actually amongst ourselves define it much broader than that, to get involved and active in the union. And it's always my argument that the initiative will be successful if the union adapts to the community. You can't do it the other way around. You can't squeeze community, or what is thought of as community, into traditional union structures. And I think what's important is that community is different things to different people. And I came into post in September 2012, and so I've been involved and around people just as all the cuts were hitting. And I first met Ruth through the bedroom tax, and people coming together, just as Ruth has outlined, to see what can be done. And the greatest strength, really, as we all know, comes about in standing together. Because when we read these horror stories, and there was another one today, of a vulnerable adult who died through starvation when his money was cut, and increasing on a regular basis now the number of people who have either taken their own lives or who've had tragic endings through the cuts. And for me, what seems to happen, those instances in the main seem to be instances where people are isolated. And that's, for that reason alone, I think it's so important that people group together. And what Ruth has outlined is really inspirational, because from an initial meeting in the Blackie over the bedroom tax last January, we broke into groups based around geographical areas. And someone who's not here tonight, Celia Ralph, invited people to meet in her house for South Liverpool, and from then on we held meetings in the Florrie, which is where I first met Ruth. And people organised themselves around what was important. And as with any groupings, you always get politicos who want to tell the working class what to do and what's best for them. And what's really been inspirational to me is how people who had that agenda were given short shrift, because they weren't on the receiving end. And all credit to those people who are so much involved, that with tremendous dignity they stayed organised and progressed. From my point of view as the union coordinator, I've always said the same thing to people: use me as a resource. So if we go back to the beginning of the bedroom tax, people wanted to leaflet through letterboxes, but the groups didn't have any money, and so people would come to me to photocopy things, etc. And when the demand grew, I was able to put pressure on Unite at a national level and get a series of professionally done leaflets, posters, things for placards, and we've gone on from there. And the good thing is that I think we cut across a lot of boundaries, and I think the community aspect of Unite really shows how people can work together. So for example, I'm South Liverpool Against Poverty are having a public meeting on Monday, and I'm speaking at that. The People's Assembly Merseyside, I worked closely with Andrea Wall in organising the public meeting in the Adelphi last September, I think it was, where over 800 people attended. And so this isn't about a competition who's going to be first off the block to beat the bedroom tax or gaining brownie points for doing it. It really is about people working together. And what was brilliant was how we have been able to work together. Ruth outlined how she recently lost a case, but as I pointed out to her, it's much better to lose at that level and be able to appeal than to lose at the third level of a tribunal hearing. And I've read the judgment, and Ruth's spot on. The way it's been left open, in fact, it's positively inviting her to appeal and almost saying the grounds to appeal. And another thing we were able to do was, because we argue quite forcefully that the bedroom tax, indeed all the austerity measures, are an infringement of people's human rights, and we've argued that very strongly. To that end, the community branch of Unite, which is based in the Casa in Liverpool, in conjunction with TUC Education, ran a course, I think it was a 10-week course, on equality and human rights, and I think you attended, Ruth, didn't you, and Linda, and other people here attended that. And some cases that were won the other week, people utilised a lot of the information they'd received from that course. And so that, I think, again, is a real example of joined up thinking and people working together. And I think another, valuable aspect, I always believe you take positive out of every experience, and sometimes I know that's a real test of our strength to do that. But nevertheless, I think what I've taken in the last 18 months has been the strength of people working together, thinking of other people, and a generosity of spirit in how those who are at the cutting edge of the cuts can still reach out and help each other. And people do help each other. And I think what it brings to the forefront, and I think it's totally in keeping with Green Party philosophy, is the moral aspect of politics, because that is something that is totally lacking in the cutthroat world of politics today, irrespective of what mainstream party it is. The total lack of humanity that is shown, and the divisions, which mean a wealthy country like ours has people dying of starvation, where there's scant regard for people with enduring mental health problems, and all of these things are only going to get worse. And I don't care if we, and I say that collectively because that's how I see my role with people, I don't care if we don't fit in to Unite structure of propping the Labour Party up, for example. For me, I think Unite Community is paving the way and trying to put pressure on the unions to change. And if that is, if people want to think we're soft and lily-livered for invoking human rights and morality, then I think they're the ones who've got it wrong. Because for me, when you stop caring about fellow human beings, then there's clearly something wrong. And what is wrong in the House of Commons, it goes on for so long, and it's so endemic, the lack of regard, that something's got to be done. And people have to realise that it's being done by people not voting. And people aren't voting because they don't feel they're represented by the mainstream parties. And it is people like Ruth and Linda and other people who have taken it to their own community, who are saying, this is what our community needs, and are actually organising themselves. And unless people wise up to that, it's mainstream politics that will lose out, because it really is a case of people taking control. I'm not romanticising that, because resources are needed. I see my professional role as exerting whatever pressure I can in terms of what Unite the Union can offer to community branches. On a personal level, I have no doubt where I stand, and have always stood and will stand in the same place tomorrow, and that is firmly on the side of those in need, because not all of us have always been in employment. Some of us have sacrificed a lot for our politics, and I say that in the general sense of the word, and for our principles, and indeed have paid a high price for it. So I know only too well that if you stick your head above the parapet, there's always someone wanting to knock it off. But I've dodged a few bullets over the years, and I'm really quite prepared to dodge a few more before I bow out. So I'm always pleased to be invited to anything like this. I'm non-partisan. I'm not going to refuse to come to something because it's a certain group of people or other. I'm always more than happy. Anything that engenders debate and discussion around improving the lot of us and our society in general, then I'm all for supporting. So that's about it really. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. On a purely selling point of view, and I don't do selling very well, Unite Community as a branch operates on a 50 pence a week membership, which entitles you to a lot of advantages to being in a union. What we try and do for those people who can't afford 50 pence a week, I speak to industrial branches and try and get them to sponsor people so that they can actually join a union free of charge. And that has actually been very successful. And it is my proud boast that this is right across the country, Unite Community. And not only did we have the first community branch, but we remain the largest community branch in the country. We're based in the Casa in Hope Street. I obviously deal with branches ranging from here to Carlisle and technically to the Isle of Man. But nevertheless, I am proud, extremely proud of the Liverpool branch because it has initiated so many changes and has played an integral part. Individuals in that give so generously of their time and expertise, not only in relation to the bedroom tax, but also in relation to keep our NHS public, acting as advocates for people, whether it be at mental health tribunals or welfare benefits tribunals. And it really is society operating at its best. So forgive me a little bit of indulgence there, but every so often I just take a step back and think I'm lucky to be around some of the people that I encounter in the Casa Community branch. So thanks very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Sheila. I would like to endorse everything that you've said. I am a Unite member myself and thoroughly support the community membership initiative, and also to draw your attention to the current anti-hunger campaign that Unite has launched nationally against poverty and hunger. This is the second initiative. They had one before Christmas jointly with the Mirror and the Trussell Trust Fund in order to campaign against the poverty and hunger, and particularly in the weeks up to the next budget on the 19th of March, where we'll be demonstrating against that budget, but calling on the government to change their course. I would just like to draw your attention to the hypocrisy of this government. Just on the train coming down, I was reading this in the paper that the government pledges that child poverty will be reduced by 2020. Ian Duncan Smith says central to our approach is a conviction that it is not enough only to tackle the symptoms of poverty without also tackling the underlying causes. This is just incredible from a government that is actually driving people into poverty. And so I do hope that we can actually build on the relationship between the anti-cuts campaigns and Unite the Union. Certainly in terms of practical support, there is more and more need. Legal aid has been cut. That's going. Next, we're being told, next in the pipeline is that people are going to have to pay for the costs of their own tribunals. So if you appeal against a benefit being disallowed and you lose, you're going to have to pay for that out of your benefits. I would just like to now continue to say that I think human rights is an issue that we've got to challenge the government on. it is not a coincidence that the government is actually considering amending the Human Rights Act and withdrawing from the European Human Rights Convention, or looking for loopholes to get out of that, because they know that they're in breach of them. And it is notable that Raquel Rolland, who is the UN rapporteur on housing provision, she was carrying out investigations in the UK into the bedroom tax. And she has cited, she's already condemned the UK government. She's sent them a report which was endorsed by Ban Ki-moon, stating, that this is driving people into poverty and hunger. And she has also now made a link between the ARTOS work capability assessments and suicide. And it is now asking for people to send her their experience of the ARTOS tests, the work capability assessments, and also to send those to Ban Ki-moon. Many of our MPs know this. They've had so many cases of people committing suicide. Michael Meacher, a Labour MP from Oldham, had letters from 3 of his constituents before they actually killed themselves, telling him the reasons that they were killing themselves, and it was because their benefits were being reduced. So I do see that we're going to need all the legal help we can get to challenge these ruthless policies. I'd just like to now tell you a little bit about my own experience in Tameside. I have a bit of a background in benefits kind of advice, because I work as a housing manager on a council estate, but where I'm having to deal with all sorts of issues now, because there just is no other provision. The safety net has disappeared. Council welfare advisors have gone. The Citizens Advice Bureau are struggling to cope. People are being given 10 or 20 minutes to deal with cases. Well, sometimes you've got to be on the phone for 30 minutes just before you get to speak to someone from the DWP or the job centre. Now, in terms of how we got set up in Tameside, it was through the issue of council tax. Now, you're probably aware that most people who were on benefits up until April last year did not pay council tax. They would have got a full council tax rebate. But from April last year, they had to start to pay some council tax. So I became aware through a friend that he'd been summoned to a court hearing at the Magistrates' Court about being in council tax arrears. And so went along to this and found hundreds of people outside the court, queuing up outside the court. And these were not magistrates' court hearings, they were special hearings that many councils are using around the country, where they send out summonses themselves to thousands of people for the same hearing. And then those people were queuing up outside, many of them with obvious disabilities. There was a woman even stood in the queue with a portable defibrillator. It was really just tragic. When, after they queued up, they got into the special court that had been set up, and they had an interview with a council officer who then told them, well, thank you, you've got to pay your council tax, we want it in full, and that's going to be £75 court costs on top of it. Now, this is a Labour council, and they've taken all these people who they know they've all been affected by the welfare reform changes. They weren't paying council tax before, and they've brought them to a court hearing, told them they've got court costs, and then they get a group liability order, and then pass these group liability orders to bailiffs to go and collect the money along with the court costs, along with the bailiff's costs, from these people who are already struggling as it was and are living, on the lowest incomes possible. So in Tameside, we started to campaign around that issue, around the bedroom tax. We've gone on to kind of take actions on other issues, the issue of benefit sanctions, where people are now being regularly sanctioned for not seeking work, not being available for work. And this is on the most trivial things. If they're a few minutes late, then they're sanctioned. For the first time, it's 2 weeks. After that, it's 13 weeks at a time. If they haven't looked for enough jobs over the week. And this included the Christmas holidays, so when people came back to the job centre in the new year, many of them were told, right, you've been sanctioned, you weren't looking for work on Boxing Day. And this is the reality of it. And how people navigate through that, they just don't know what to do. Honestly, the horror stories, I could go on, but we haven't got that much time. The other issue that we've also got involved with is the workfare or work experience. Now, this is unpaid forced labour. Let's be right about it. It's nothing else. They've got people working for these businesses, and they are multi-million pound businesses. Poundland, for example, is floating on the stock exchange in the next week. They're going to be giving every one of their directors £175,000 worth of shares, which they will then be able to sell on the stock exchange. And this is a company which is using forced unpaid labour of people who are just receiving job seekers allowance, and they have to go and work for them for doing 35 plus hour shifts a week. So we've been holding demonstrations outside Poundland, outside the employment agencies who are sending them there, outside the job centres, outside the town hall over the council tax issue, and outside the social housing providers about the issue of bedroom tax and calling for no bedroom tax evictions. I'm going to really throw it open to yourselves now and see if anybody's got any questions or anything that they'd like to say about the welfare reforms and about how we resist austerity. Any questions?
Can I just say something? Sorry. Can I just say that just in support of what's just been said, all of the initiatives, likewise the ATOS and the workfare and the Poundland kind of scenario, in conjunction with the People's Assembly, we did things whereby we we leafleted, which had People's Assembly on the front side, and on the back it had the names of all the shops that employed workfare or zero-hour contracts, and that was really useful to do. The other thing where there's been action, and that derived mainly from the People's Assembly, was targeting the loan shops, the payday loan shops, especially around here in Williamson Square. And that was done one Saturday where and people, sort of just occupied it essentially, and so it closed, and they moved on to another one and actually managed to close 3 in one day. So it's this kind of like, peaceful yet powerful actions by people to highlight exactly what's going on. And for me, one of the most obscene things is here in Williamson Square, where you have the job centre, and next door to it you have one of those payday loan shops. it sort of really is a sign of the time. And one of the initiatives that we've taken upon ourselves to do is to target the job centres and provide alternatives for people in terms of what they're going on, encourage them to join the community branch and also direct them to facilities. The issue around bailiffs and basically selling debts to bailiffs, which is probably one of the most immoral and obscene things. Again, recently we developed a leaflet. I went down to London, we worked through a leaflet dealing with debt, which highlights issues around your rights and what you can and can't do if the bailiff turns up, and where you can get help. So I think the key to it all the time is informing people, providing people with as much information as possible, but keeping that updated, because as rightly being pointed out from the initial thing of the bedroom tax, that is still ongoing, but people are having success with appeals. But sanctions now are absolutely getting ridiculous, the positions people are in. And as rightly being said, people taking their own lives, which is probably one of the biggest indictments of our society today. So I think that, I agree, and I think the actions that are being taken, that is, we've got to go out there, we've got to be at those places, and we've got to target people, because if you just manage to save one from the edge of despair, it's been a worthwhile exercise. But I think we have to go out there armed with the information. I have a booklet. It was actually done by Think Tank Class, which is a Labour think tank, but it's actually very good in terms of its the myths of welfare. So for every time you're saying something and somebody is saying to you, oh yes, but it's the immigrants, or it's the scroungers, it arms you with the statistics to deal with it and to fight back. It's a really good little booklet, and I've got quite a lot of them in my office, and you can get, if anybody wants those, then I'd be more than happy to send them out to them.
Thanks, Sheila. Do we have any contributions?
Do you want the microphone?
Does that work? Yeah.
I just wondered, have you ever considered promoting citizens' income as like a solution? Do you know anything about citizens' income? I mean, that's a Green Party, long-term Green Party policy.
Do you mean like a local money?
Well, no, it means that everybody gets a basic income. Everybody, like a universal income. Everybody gets an income.
Isn't that called socialism? So no, seriously, I mean, that's my philosophy. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is quite a new, well, it's not new, but it's something that people are beginning to recognise, this sort of thing like a universal income, which will solve a lot of these problems. Obviously, I just wondered if it was part of